Next, from Springfield, we talked to Larry Morrissey, the mayor of Rockford, about the request for a tax credit extension of the River Edge zone. This runs about 10 minutes.
Mayor Larry Morrissey from Rockford, thanks for joining us again on the Illinois Channel. You were just down here today testifying before a committee of the legislature, and what was it you wanted to tell them?
So today I joined 4 other cities in Illinois, our River Edge zone communities, asking for an extension of the River Edge redevelopment zone historic tax credit. It's been a really important tool helping us to revitalize our central city. The tax credit, it can be monetized, and that's been enabled us to get deals done, projects moving forward that we simply wouldn't have been able to do without it. We don't want to see that momentum end. We want to continue it in the next 5 years. If the extension is granted, could be a great opportunity for us to continue that progress.
And just so people understand, this isn't impacting just Rockford. This is
Right.
river development, so it would be going along, whether it's in Peoria or the Quad Cities, any number of places across the state, and have been used successfully. Right?
It's 5 cities, so it's Rockford, Peoria, Elgin, East St. Louis, and Aurora.
Okay.
So the 5 of us have a lot of similar attributes in being cities that have really been hit hard now for decades because of the change in the global economics, really. But we were especially hit hard after the Great Recession hit in late 08 and 09. And our story in Rockford, we've lost about 30% of our overall tax base. The property tax rate's gone up extremely high. Even though we haven't raised taxes the last 3 years, our property taxes haven't been raised. But the reason this bill is needed is that it's critical to get deals financed, because you can't go to a bank, ask for a loan when you've got that big of a hit in your valuations. The cost of construction is much higher than the value of the property when the construction's completed. So this is the only way to be able to get deals financed. You ask for the bank to give a smaller loan, and you are able to bring in more equity because of the tax credits, and that's how you get your deal done.
So who would actually get the advantage of the tax credit? Is it some developer? Is it investors that are putting money towards these projects?
So it's really at the heart of it's the city. That's why we're advocating for it. And in our case, for example, in Rockford, we've got a lot of municipal-owned properties that are brownfield properties. We're sort of the developer of last resort. We then team up, and in many cases, we're actually putting out RFPs, inviting developers to partner with us on these troubled properties, and then we use as one of the carrots to incentivize the deal and to be able to get financed the existence of the tax credit.
How have you used it up to this date?
So we've got 2 projects that have been completed that we could point to specifically to talk about the benefits of it. One of them is a $12 million project right on our riverfront. It was the known as, not today as the Prairie Street Brew House. It was originally Rockford Brewing Company, built in the late 1880s. That project today generates a lot of jobs, retail. It's a mixed-use development with also commercial office space and housing. We've got another project that was completed, which was actually a couple of buildings right on our East State Street downtown corridor. Again, mix of retail and housing. And then one project that's under construction that is a $12 million project, which would be an adaptive reuse of an old building, downtown office building, into 62 apartments and some retail space. That being said, we have a number of projects that are at risk that we hope to move forward, including a $65 million project that's part of it financed with historic tax credits. It's an old Amrock manufacturing building, about a 13-story building, and adjacent to it would be a new construction conference center. So that hotel and conference center would be one of the single biggest privately invested projects in our recent modern Rockford history, maybe the biggest project, but it's one that it desperately needs the extension of the historic tax credits to be able to successful moving forward.
And you said Peoria is one of those communities.
Peoria is one of the communities, right? And some of the cities like East St. Louis, they haven't done any completed projects, but they're right on the verge, hopefully, of being able to do it. We probably had a head start from some of the other cities, but I look at a city like East St. Louis where they've really struggled. This is a desperately needed tool, and I love being able to support my fellow mayors and other communities that are doing their very best to try to make things happen in our communities.
I would just say I was in Peoria and looked at, went through and saw some of the new businesses that have opened along the riverfront.
Sure.
And you go to these communities. It's been a little bit of time since I've been to Rockford, but there's some really interesting and compelling places, just to go out and meet friends for dinner or a drink or whatever. And to on the other hand, as you've kind of mentioned, capture the charm of some of these older buildings that are really along there. To what extent have you seen then, does that help in a broader redevelopment beyond the direct investment into these businesses?
Yeah, great question. So all of us, as our cities, our 5 river edge cities, we lost a tremendous amount over the last part of the 20th century when urban sprawl and just dynamics of those days pulled a lot of investment out of our central core. We're finally starting to see reinvestment in our core, and the good news is the early signs that we're seeing, when we're capable, and we are matching it with good infrastructure investments, improving our old state highways, for example, and making investments in our landscapes, our riverfront areas, we're able to attract new investment. So we really are entering a new phase, a proud phase of our communities. Cities like Rockford, Aurora, Peoria, East St. Louis, Elgin, all of us have a lot going for us. We shouldn't put our heads low, we should hold our heads high, but we need these kind of critical redevelopment tools to help us be successful. We have to be realistic with what the dynamics are in the marketplace, but I'm very hopeful, I'm optimistic, despite the challenges right now in the state budget process, that we can hopefully get a compromise and some of these bills that have been held up can move forward. The fate of our communities and throughout the state of Illinois depends on ultimately us coming together as a state, getting done what needs to get done so we can advance a prosperous agenda for all of us.
Let me ask you, so what's the downside? Who, if anyone, loses on this? And first of all, we're talking about the tax credit that's going to expire. Right. When would it expire? By when, therefore, does it have to be continued so that your development projects are not interfered with?
Well, the truth is some of the development projects opportunities have already been put on hold. We were working with a developer last year who suspended our development talks when we couldn't guarantee them that the program was going to get extended, and they just got nervous about not being able to complete the deal if it didn't get extended. So we hope to resume those types of conversations once we get the bill extended, assuming we do. In the meantime, what we're trying to do is make sure we give proper information and education to all of the folks in the State House, the State Senate, about this bill. We're talking to them about things like the fact that the University of Illinois
let me just specifically. So when did you say it expired?
End of the year, 2016, right? So,
and when do you need to have it done by?
Yesterday, a year ago, right? Because these deals,
you're already having these deals.
We're already losing deals. All right, so it doesn't mean we can't pick them back up. We are losing deals today because it hasn't been extended. So I understand we're in a tough budget situation, but that's why I'm here personally advocating. We need to educate as best we can our state leaders.
I'm confused on this. How does it negatively impact the state? Because it would seem to me, why not do this?
The fear you get is, hey, initially someone's getting a tax credit. That means they're not sending $1 to the state coffers. They're holding that $1 back in the form of a credit, right? The study done by the University of Illinois Springfield campus, commissioned by Landmarks Illinois, demonstrated that the state actually is getting about a 10-to-1 return on its investment. So for every $1 of tax credit, they're getting $10 back in the form of an investment to support tax revenues for the state of Illinois. So we really are holding on to that as the logical, rational basis to overcome the fear that it's going to be money out the door. What we've said is it's very rare to get this many mayors down talking about something on a common agenda like we are, supporting a tax credit. What they're more used to probably is hearing from an industry of some sort, some manufacturing or what industry it might be. But this is truly a community redevelopment tool. Yes, it's in the form of this historic tax credit, but we think it's a great thing for Illinois cities and our particular 5 cities for the state.
Before we let you go, Rockford's always had a bit, for a while now, it's like everyone's struggled, but I think Rockford perhaps more than some others. Therefore, to get some redevelopment going is even more critical. How high is the unemployment now in Rockford?
So our unemployment rate is typically about 40% higher than the state average. I believe it's still around that number. We have improved a lot from where we were, but we've got some systemic. We've got one of the highest child poverty rates in the state, one of the highest, if not the highest rate of abuse and neglect cases. Got a lot of folks living in public housing and affordable housing and just living in poverty in our community and struggling. So we're doing everything we can to try to rebuild the engine that we once had, creating a lot of jobs in our community. And this is simply one of the tools and approaches that we think helps move us down the path of improvement.
Well, Mayor Morrissey, we appreciate you
Thank
taking
you very
time.
much. Appreciate
Thanks.
it. Thank you. Thank you.